Hi, everyone.
Hi.
What I thought we would do is it would be lovely to check in and just say who has never meditated before. Anyone?
No.
So completely new. Who perhaps has done a bit of it or done yoga or Tai Chi or something lovely? Oh, okay, okay. And who perhaps has got a really regular practice and is quite familiar with this? Right, okay, that's great. My experience of this is that it's a topic that I personally find fascinating. But once we get into conversation, there's a danger of really it expanding in quite a big way. So it, having an experience of it is good. If I can share some theory as theory, and then if we do another practice, and then have the discussion, that would probably mean we get through more. Because there is a danger that we sort of go, oh yes, that's really interesting, and then we never actually, as Sarah, I suspect, will know from before. So I hope that's okay without sort of over controlling the call. So what I thought I'd do at the very beginning is just a 5-minute relaxation, which some of you will be familiar with. So please feel free to do as much or as little as this. And if you want to turn your camera off, that's fine. The purpose of this is really just to get a little experience and to settle in and become present. So let's start perhaps by just taking the attention away from maybe the screen and coming inwards. If you want to shut your eyes, that's quite a nice thing to do, because visually everything is quite sort of stimulating. And maybe take a nice big deep breath, and if you can, sort of roll your shoulders and your neck and sort of feel into anything that feels tight. Just getting on a call and, joining in with something like this to begin with, the body, the nervous system can sort of tense up. So let's see if we can let go of that. And then I'm going to invite you to do something that probably seems a bit odd, really, but just sort of allow the whole body to soften and collapse. I mean, just sort of let the shoulders drop and the belly hang out and the legs just be soft and the jaw soft and the head sort of lean down. And see if you can soften any sort of tension or muscle that's sort of there holding. And then as we sit there, just bringing now, without losing that relaxation and that softness, just lifting the head up very gently. And see if you can just keep the head quite sort of tilted up so that the chin is parallel to the floor. And then just pulling the chest up again without losing any of that softness and relaxation. And just opening it up a little bit so that you can breathe easily and comfortably. And what we have here, hopefully, is a relaxed, soft, and yet slightly alert posture. So feel into that and do whatever helps you feel comfortable. And then if you would like to put your hand on your belly, if you want to, I'm going to invite you to bring your attention to the body breathing. And if we start with 3 slightly slower, deeper breaths, you'll feel your hand on your belly moving very slightly as the body breathes. So I won't say anything while we do this. So just 3 slightly slower, deeper breaths. And you'll feel your hand just moves very slightly there. And if while we're doing this, you can keep the attention on your hand and your belly, as the body continues to relax and breathe, there will be a very gradual, slight movement. And see if you can track it very gently. I mean, this is really soft. Don't feel under any pressure. Just sort of breath in, and then in your mind silently say in, and then when the breath goes out, out. In and out. So it's subtle, isn't it? That very subtle movement. In and out. In and out. And thoughts, of course, will dart through, but this sort of interior following of the breath can help quieten the mind. So a lot of this is just about letting go of the tightness in the muscles or the body, letting go of any thoughts that are beginning to create anything in the body, and just allowing ourselves to be. And just as we come to the conclusion of this, tuning in to this moment right here, right now, sitting on the chair, together on the call. And when you're ready, let's gently come back together without losing that relaxation if we can, and that sense of being present. When you open your eyes, we come back together again and reconnect, hopefully feeling a little bit more relaxed and focused. Tracy, you're nodding. That's wonderful. Good. Okay. So at the risk of being a bore, I thought it would be quite nice to have a few pictures to take you through this talk. So if you can bear with me, I'm going to switch from our screen here of each other to some slides, and then I'll come back once we've gone through them. And I wanted to start off not introducing you to Freddie Mercury, which by asking you a question, really. So is this familiar? And I'm going to paint a sort of scenario that can happen. So we find ourselves sitting at our computer, maybe at work, and while we're sitting there, we find or we notice our mind is thinking about a holiday that perhaps we've planned or a walk that we're going to do. And then some days later, we are actually on that walk that we've been thinking about. So it becomes a reality. And we become aware when we're on that walk that, again, the mind is thinking about maybe a situation with a partner or a friend. And so, again, we're doing one thing, but our thoughts sort of drift to other things. And then we find a few days later, we're actually in that situation with our friend, and you've guessed it, lo and behold, our thoughts are perhaps not there, but ironically, they could be back at where we were before. Is this a situation, and I'm really just sort of getting a yes or no, that is familiar?
Yep.
Yeah.
When they did some research on this, what they found was that people reckoned about half their day was spent in this, my body's here, but my mind is actually somewhere else. And what they call this is the wandering mind. And it's very common, and we all do it. And what they also found is that a wandering mind tends not to be a happy mind. From the point of view of, let's say, our work, you can say if our mind is wandering for 50% of the time, and it might be work at home or work, that means we're probably only working properly for half the time. Or we're out walking, and if our mind is somewhere else, the chances of having maybe an accident are slightly greater. Or the relationship that we've got, if our mind is sort of half the time on something else, the relationship can not suffer, but we're not fully present to people. So a lot of this is why mindfulness has become more popular, because I think as we've become busier, we've had busier lives, the mind, to try and keep up with it all, becomes quite busy. So where does mindfulness help with this? And forgive me for those of you that have done meditation and mindfulness before. Some of you might well have seen this next picture, which I find really useful in describing what mindfulness is. So here we are out walking the dog, and the mind is full of all these things that we've got to do or that are happening in our life. And that we call mind is full of thoughts. Whereas the dog, and this is a bit of a sort of cartoon, sees just what's happening here and now. And actually, this is quite useful to describe what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is just awareness without judgment, and it's taking in what's happening right here, right now. And we all do it. This isn't something that we have to train ourselves to do. We naturally do it. We do both of these things. We're very good at thinking, and we can be mindful. What happens is that we're not aware usually which state we're in. We tend to use mindful more, and we're not, we tend to dismiss mindful, the dog picture, as sort of being nice to do if you've got time, but actually perhaps, why else would you do it? So I think this is quite useful when we start practicing what we've just done, relaxing the body, focusing the mind. We can switch between these two states with greater awareness and skill. And we can learn what benefits being mindful has, and maybe what drawbacks a full mind has. So just let me put some words to this to try and get it more sort of into a theory. So when we are mindful, we're paying attention with some intention to do so. So I'm doing it on purpose. I am always in the now. And that's a big question, which we might discuss later. And the mind, which will usually judge things, is quite quiet. It's in the background. The primary focus is just on seeing and absorbing. If you sit and you listen to someone really carefully, we're being mindful. If I saw someone on the call earlier on with a cat. When we sit and we look at a pet, we're being mindful, usually, because we're just gazing, we're relaxed, we're focused, we're enjoying the company. And that sort of captures the quality of what mindful is. In contrast, if we are lost in thought, we tend to be detached from what's happening in our body and what is happening around us. And so we're in a world of our own, which largely is thinking about things that have happened before or things that will happen in the future. And what's happening now tends to be sort of, yes, that's obvious. And we don't value it. And the nature of thought they say, is largely the things that we remember that stay in our mind is worry, perhaps irritation, or we're dreaming. Does that all make sense?
Yep. Yep.
Lovely. Okay. So, how can we be mindful? How can we cultivate an experience and discover a bit more of this mindfulness? I'm going to offer 3 techniques here, which I'm going to suggest that we do together, just so we get a felt feel of them. The first one is quite useful if you discover, you think, oh my goodness, I'm really feeling quite tense here. I can't think clearly. My heart's racing, or one gets lost in something. So this technique, and it's really nothing new, but let's just look at it more closely, is to stop, physically stop, and pause, and take 3 deep, slow breaths. So let's do that individually now. And of course, you're going to count the breaths. They don't need to be just normal breaths, nothing, but just slightly slower and deeper. So let's do it now. Okay. So what does that do? Firstly, it oxygenates the body. And oxygen largely means that the nervous system can start calming down a bit. It means that the brain can probably see a little bit more clearly. So we give ourselves more oxygen. Because we're counting the breaths, the attention is on the breathing rather than perhaps on the racing mind. So we're giving the brain a very short but very distinct pause. Now, thoughts might come in, but if you can just focus on counting the breaths, it will stop. It will put a pause in the stream of thinking. And 9 times out of 10, it's the thinking that's caused this anxiety. And the third magical thing is, as you're watching the breath, you will automatically be in the present moment because the body is here and now. And you remember that picture at the beginning where I'm working on my computer, but my thoughts are somewhere else. With 3 deep breaths, my thoughts are actually here now. And there are many benefits to that. That I commend as one way. If you do that 4 or 5 times a day, it's interesting to see what the results are. The second technique is slightly deeper, and this one is more of a practice. And what the suggestion is to have a mindful break. So it's pausing intentionally, looking around you, listening and feeling this moment right here, right now, for about 45 seconds, and roughly doing this every hour. So I'm going to give us 45 seconds to do that, just so we have an experience of it. I'll just give you the 15-minute counters. So let's pause. So you're looking, listening and feeling, that's 20 seconds. That's 30 seconds. And that's 45. Sort of sometimes feels a bit long when we actually stop. But a 45-second pause like that, a mindful pause done every hour, will change the way your brain functions, because it will be giving it that experience of what the dog was doing. And what it will also give you is an experience of, how does this change my experience of life? Notice that looking, listening, and feeling are all senses. They're the senses that in which we take in the world. And of course, we take them in through the body, and the body is always present. So it's extremely powerful, especially when done regularly, but it sounds completely simple. And the third technique, which many of you will be familiar with, is actually having a practice, a meditation practice. Now, you don't need to sit looking like that, but you could sit on a chair. The morning is quite good for this. Somewhere, ideally, where you won't be distracted. And just sit for 10 minutes, focusing on the breath. And when thoughts come in, choosing to put them away very gently and come back to the breath. Sometimes counting the breath is quite a good way of helping the mind get quiet. So you're just sitting, watching the body breathing, concentrating and watching. The two go together. A 10-minute practice a day can be really powerful. Most people will start doing maybe a few and then drop off and then come back and then drop off and then come back. But if you start sustaining it. So those are 3 ways in which you will cultivate mindfulness. All of them, you'll notice, pay attention on purpose in the present moment, and we're choosing to push, if we can, the busy mind to one side just for that period of time. 3 breaths, 45 seconds, or distractions. Oh, right. So why bother? It's a good question. The first thing the mind will say is, I'm busy, I haven't got time to do this. And anyway, I've done all this and nothing seems to be happening. So it can, on the surface, look very frustrating and time-consuming to the rational mind. There is no reward that someone will give you from outside. So it's not as if we achieve something that we can hold up and say, look how much I've done. It's all work that is within, and it's largely unseen. And the ego tends to like having ticks. Mindfulness does not take difficulties away. It helps you manage difficulties better, but it's not a magic cure. I think sometimes people sort of go, oh, I should be more mindful. In other words, I should be all zen and relaxed. That's not what it does. We can talk in more detail on that. There's no money in it. And the mind might well say, look, I could be doing something that would actually make some money rather than sit here doing, inverted commas, nothing. It does not take pain away. It will help us manage pain, but it doesn't take away the things in life that cause pain, emotional or physical. And it's not a cure to be happy. So you might well say, what has got it? What does it have going for it? Well, stress is one of the largest causes of disease, and it, without a doubt, has shown that it reduces stress. So it helps us sleep better, which is incredibly important because we can switch the mind off. it helps the immune system. It's anti-aging. There are many, many health benefits that seem to have been documented. It helps us focus. So we can choose what to focus on rather than just being a leaf in the wind that follows whatever comes in our direction. And that's really helpful. We don't have to be brought down by something. We can switch our attention with a bit more knowledge. It will make you more effective at work or in relationships or out walking or whatever, those 3 pictures plus many things more, because just simply being present to what's going on means that we do it better cooking, better gardening, because we notice things. When you are faced with a problem, sometimes we try and resolve, well, mostly we try and resolve it with a rational idea. We have a huge reservoir of creativity within us. And when we pause, those good ideas from the subconscious can come up. So intuitively, or intuition is much more active, and we're much more creative. You think of some of these great artists, they have their best ideas in the bath, or they don't quite know how they did it. There's something bigger than themselves that comes out. Mindfulness definitely opens that up. We have wisdom within us, which when we're calm and relaxed and focused, just naturally emerges. We get a better sense of what we need to be doing in life, so decisions become easier. Where we should be spending our time is clearer, because we know ourselves better. When you sit in silence and you watch your own mind, you begin to become much more self-aware and more comfortable within your own skin. And that means that you'll have a better relationship with people around you. And finally, it's a really beneficial life skill. So it's not for everyone, but it has many benefits if you do get a sense that it's for you. So I'm going to conclude with just one more slide, and then I lie. I've got some resources that I was going to recommend. So 3 things help: finding a teacher or a teaching that speaks to you, obviously practicing it, and being around others who are doing it helps. There is an app which is free that has a ton of great resources on it called Insight Timer. It's also a bit like a Fitbit for, I don't know whether Fitbit still exists, but for meditation. So you can log your sessions as well. So that's a helpful motivator, and lots of great advice on that. There are free courses, Future Learn. If you've come across it, you'll know that they run sort of short 6-week courses, bags of resources, a community to study with. It's all done online, and it's free. Headspace is another very good app, and they do it in little cartoon bite-size bits of information. And I think you can have the first 10 sessions free, and then it's a small amount to pay up for the year, I think. Lots of people I know have started with Headspace and loved it, because it's sort of very, very precise and accurate, but it's also very light and fun way of doing it. If you're serious, there's a very good book which is free online in PDF format called Mindfulness in Plain English, and that will take you step by step through mindfulness in great detail. Excellent book. We always used to recommend that as a pre-read for anyone coming on courses. And then a book that was given to me some years ago by Eckhart Tolle. I was looking today, there was a picture of him in the Albert Hall some months ago, I think, absolutely full. He's a very popular contemporary teacher. Most people read this book and say, I haven't a clue what he's talking about the first time, then go back and go, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So he speaks in very clear language, and he's had the whole experience himself. And so to conclude, you'll be pleased to hear, the solution to whatever we're struggling with in life is not outside of us. It's in here. It's in our hearts and in our minds. It's in our reaction to whatever the problem is. So all of mindfulness is working with what is within. It's a very personal journey. For me, I think it's amazing that we're not taught this, because everything else we do stems from our mind. So if we understand and can manage our mind better, everything else falls into place a little more easily. You're not trying to acquire a new skill. We are naturally mindful. There is a little bit of theory to point us in the right direction. We do need to practice it. And then through the practice, we discover ourselves and go, oh, I knew that. Yes, that makes sense. And finally, this idea of find a teacher or teaching that you trust, practice it, and see if you can join with others. Okay, well done. And bless you for being with me for that.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
I know when you were talking about that, like the when you were saying about when your mind's full and you're in that moment when you just can't, you've got so much stuff going on in your head, it seems almost counterintuitive to stop because you want to get everything done or you need to do things. So I suppose for many of us, it will be actually be brave enough to just take that moment and stop doing what you're doing.
It is. I've been doing mindfulness for Jane now, been nearly a year since the first lockdown. And it is very difficult when you're in that moment. But what I've found is that I've become one of those people. I suddenly go, you know what, I just need to meditate. And my husband looks at me as if I've gone mad. But it really, just taking that little pause, it's literally 5 minutes for the soul to sort of go, oh yes, hang on, that was actually what we wanted, not the 90,000 things that were flying around our head. So,
I often find I fall asleep when I practice it, because I have to lie down because I have balance problems at the moment, and I'm snoring. I wake myself up snoring.
At least that means you're relaxed.
Well, but it does make me feel much better because I've stopped, and the continual buzzing going around in my head has gone, and that's the key, isn't it? And I find now I can stop and enjoy the birds on the bird feeder. Simple, isn't it? I could name them all, but it gives you that clarity of thought for those brief moments, that gives you that break that you need, that invigorates you and revitalises you mentally and physically for the rest of the day. It's amazing, really. Yeah.
And extra important at the moment, because I don't know about what everybody else is up to, but I've been working from home since March, and every day tends to run into the other if you don't take a moment to notice the birds or to notice the something.
Yes, yeah. It's seeing what's out there in front of you at that moment, isn't it? And actually taking it on board at that time. And you see it sometimes, but it doesn't go in here. You're only visualizing it. You're not actually taking it in. And it's when you suddenly realize you're actually absorbing what you're looking at and enjoying that second that you realize.
I agree. I've just been having a conversation with my son at dinner this evening, because he's only 14 and he's really struggling with being now back at home doing his studies in his bedroom. And we've just talked about that, having, a bit of a structure to your day and having a moment where you step away from that work and go and take a change of scenery. And in some way, I'm trying to talk to him about mindfulness, and of course he's only 14, so he won't be practicing it quite the way that we've just talked about it, but just being able to change his state and go to another part of the house or go outside and have a walk, hopefully will re-energize him for the next, because he's finding it very boring being in his bedroom, not being with his friends. And I've certainly seen him just sort of dip since he's come back from the Christmas holidays and having to go back and not go back to school.
Mm. Mm. I think it's a hard thing for everybody, isn't it?
Mm.
It's enforced. It's almost like a house arrest, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's finding things. I've discovered drawing again. And that's another way I found that takes me out of the moment. I wouldn't say I'm very good at it, I have to add, but it takes me out of, the bigger picture, if you like, which I guess is a type of mindfulness in it. It's not stopping and taking a breath, but it's taking yourself away from this all-encompassing.
Paying attention on purpose.
Yes, yeah. Before I know where I am, my wonderfully drawn flower, but 20 minutes has gone by, and I've actually been engrossed in that one thing. And it doesn't matter how good the end result is. I do feel quite refreshed at the end of that. So I suppose that's a type of being in the moment, maybe. I don't know.
I agree, Caroline. As you can see behind me are some of the pictures that I've done, and you probably can't see that, but I've all the way around the house I've been doing loads of paintings and drawings since the lockdown, and it's made a real difference. But it does make a difference.
I think Phil said something when we first came in the call about paying attention to the news, and that's sort of the reverse of it. You're paying attention on purpose to something that's terrible and you've got no say or control over. We should definitely.
One thing with mindfulness, isn't it? I guess you have control at that moment.
It's about you're having that control.
Yeah, you're choosing where you're putting your mind at that moment for that 45 seconds or those 10 minutes. And I think it is, as Jane said, it's a bit of an art to it, isn't there? Because we all have the ability, but you have to sort of learn how to do it. Again, it doesn't come naturally, but once you get into it, and I can't believe I'm saying this, to be honest, because I wouldn't have rated it initially, but it does help. Just taking yourself out for however brief a moment, in whatever way, once you get into the routine of doing it, it really becomes part of your daily thing, and it really helps. Really help. Well, it does in my case anyway.
It's nice to hear that it's not just all about meditation, because obviously I know meditation is very good for some people and it does help. But for some people, I think when people say mindfulness, they think, oh, I've got to sit still for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I've just got to think of nothing, and don't like to be alone with my own being. Don't want to be with myself. Whereas knowing that it's not just about that, and it's something you can do little bits of throughout the day, or work your way up to doing a meditation, for example. That's a nice thing to hear as well.
I'm very envious of Phil stroking his cat there.
This is Fox.
Oh.
He's a cuddle cat, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
They're perfect for mindfulness, aren't they, pets?
Well, he normally sits on my lap when I'm watching the TV, and that's what he wants.
Yes, they're good stress busters, aren't they, animals?
Oh, I tell you what, I couldn't manage without him. I think everybody's so happy with it. If you've got a pet, they're saviours in this lockdown.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Jane, what would you say? This is your one sort of, I can't think of my words. I'm afraid it's my age. Hint or tip that you would give to get us sort of started on the track of regular practicing of it?
Finding a little bit of your own space, and difficult to say, isn't it? But there's something deep inside us which is so peaceful and so pure, and we can't find that outside. We can only find it within. And sometimes we need others to help us with that. But at the end of the day, it's our own. That's how it broke open for me. I just suddenly realized that my best friend was me. And the more I felt comfortable with myself, the better able I was to interact with the rest of the world.
Right.
I think the one practical hint that you gave to me, Jane, was the insight timer, because that was a short thing I could control what type of meditation I did, how long I did it. If I just had 10 minutes and I was feeling overwhelmed, I could locate one. And that sort of gave me the confidence to be able to give and to be sure in my meditation. I've always thought, I always assumed people had these wild epiphanies whilst meditating and solved all the world's problems. But actually, you just give yourself space to go, oh yeah, that's what's bothering me, or that thought keeps coming back. There must be something in that. And it was just a really practical way that I could practice in a way that suited me. So I think I'm on a 98 days straight on my logging of my meditation on there.
Yeah, very good.
Just say thank you very much, Jane.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you,
as well.
Jane. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, thank you.
Jane is a member of the Time Bank, and she does do regular mindfulness sessions. So,
Yeah, we do mindfulness on Thursdays. If you wanted to get involved, the Time Bank's completely free to be part of. It's a system of community skill sharing. So you join and offer whatever it is that you like doing or you're good at doing, or sometimes just, help with daily activities. Obviously, we're not all got wonderful skills like Jane to share with mindfulness, but as I say, everybody's welcome to join in and get involved and do some regular practices with Jane. I can't rate her highly enough. It literally, I think, has saved my sanity through lockdown. But yeah, all the things you point out about why not do it, it's the time one that got me, because I've actually found I have so much more time by taking time rather than trying to do 40,000 things at once. I can pause and do one at a time, and it's definitely investment in yourself that's worth it, in my opinion.
well, thank you everybody for coming. I hope you found it useful. I'll send you a little email afterwards, just asking for some feedback, get a bit of idea what you thought of the session and everything. But for now, thank you very much, and
thank you, Jane.
A calm and relaxed evening.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Emma.
Jane.
Thank you, Jane.
Bye, Debs.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.